Hey yo, what's up? It's your boy Akelia, and welcome to my channel. First ever YouTube video, I know, awesome. Probably gonna suck, but hopefully you enjoy it. And yeah, what am I gonna do today? I'm just gonna be doing my thoughts on Honkai Impact. I've done everything there is to do, pretty much, so far. There's not a lot, but I've done it all. And the gameplay you're gonna be seeing is very, very old footage. So, bear that in mind. I decided to make some YouTube videos because I'm actually recovering from a surgery and I've got lots of spare time, and yeah, so here we go. I'm going to be doing this in order of what I like to what I don't like, because there's a lot I like about this game, but there's also a lot that I don't really particularly like. Some are way more egregious than others, mainly with microtransactions, because, well, it is a gacha game and they need to have them, but I don't like the pity. First thing I'm going to do is talk about the story, because unlike Genshin Impact, which I also have played, AR58, I actually care about the story. I cared about Genshin's story at the beginning, but it went from caring to just wishing there was a skip button. But with this story, there isn't much of it, but I'm a lot more invested, because the Trailblazers are very compelling characters. I'm not sure if this is just the Genshin player in me, but it really feels like the story is progressing, unlike in Genshin where I feel like everything I do is just hitting walls and dead ends, and I don't feel any closer to finding my brother/sister. Alongside that, the starting cast of characters you get introduced to are so lovable compared to what they are in Genshin. I know I shouldn't be comparing the two as much as I am, and trust me, I know they are not the same game, but it's hard to not draw parallels between the stories. Well, who actually are the starting cast, I hear you ask? Well, forgive me for me butchering their names, but you have March 7th, Dan Heng, and the Trailblazer, the main character. There is also Welt and Himiko, but I particularly am focusing on the main three. In particular, March 7th, who is in a way a Paimon substitute, but that feels slanderous to say because March 7th is so much better. It feels like she's not the mouthpiece for you. She's her own character, unlike Paimon, who will not shut up. And we all know that she doesn't shut up. We also have Dan Heng, who out of the three is probably the least interesting, but it doesn't make him a bad character. I actually find him to be quite likable, and I actually use him in my teams. And last but not least, we have the Trailblazer, who is technically like a walking nuclear bomb, but we'll just look past that for the sake of the video and the game. But they actually feel like a proper character compared to Aether or Lumine, because they actually speak and they have their own personality, which makes it quite nice to actually play as them. Plus, Fire MC is broken. I'm not actually going to talk too much about this story in what happens, because if you haven't played it or watched it, then you should probably go do that, because it's a really, really interesting and fun story, especially to play through. I would highly recommend, if not just for that. Well, that's enough about the story. Now let's talk about the actual gameplay, because if the gameplay's horrible, then the story's going to feel like a slog to play through. Luckily for us, we don't have to worry about it, because the combat and general gameplay of this game feels so smooth to play, especially the combat. You may not know this, but this game is actually a turn-based game. Oh no, turn-based, I have to wait. But no, it's really, really, really enjoyable. 3 reallys. And because it's a turn-based game, this game is definitely not going to be for everyone. I am a huge fan of turn-based combat. You may not be. I am awesome. You may not be. But like, you know, everyone has their own taste in games. And if this is not your taste, good for you. But I am gonna say, if there is a turn-based game which you should try out, it is this one. The animations are amazing. The turn-based combat is amazing. That one YouTube ad I just quoted. When you do actually end up going into combat though, it seems quite simple, because you only actually have 3 buttons. You have an attack, a skill, and an ultimate. And you may be thinking, well, that sounds boring, because you can only attack, skill, and ultimate so many times before you've done it too much and it's just repetitive, which is totally understandable. Like, I get that, but there's also a few more complex things. Not super complex, like you can still be a toddler and switch your mind off and have brain rot, and you can get through this game. One of the things which actually is different in other games is your ultimate ability. Normally in games you would use your turn to use your ultimate ability, but in this game you can click your ultimate ability at any point and it will instantly push you to the top of the turn order. It adds a little bit more gameplay to the gameplay, is the best way to put it. I feel like if it didn't have this feature, you would feel too constricted to the turn order, because there isn't as much CR manipulation in this game as there is in others. So, one last thing about the gameplay is the open world aspect. I say open world, but really it's a semi-open world. The world isn't as open as Genshin, where you can technically sprint from one side of the map to the other, except for Inazuma. You are constricted to small little segments, kind of like in Dark Souls, which personally I find a little bit tactless, as this game had a possibility to be its own IP, and of course it just had to copy everything from Dark Souls. So yeah, but that's enough about Dark Souls. It just boils my blood a little bit. So long story short, there's a certain amount of things you can do in this game before you genuinely run out of combat, unlike in Genshin, where there's lots of chests and you don't really feel like you ever run out unless you no life the game. Two really tiny minuscule things I've got to mention, which aren't massive at all, is the end game, which is the simulated universe and the Forgotten Hall. But I'm going to talk about them in a different video because I don't really have enough time, and I also just want to get this video up. Now it's time to talk about probably the most iffy part of this game, which is the microtransactions and the fact that it is in fact a gacha game. As we know, gacha games are known to be predatory when it comes to stealing your money. I say stealing because some of them do it right and some of them feel like they're just manipulating you into spending, which is a good marketing tactic, I guess, when it comes to making money. And if we know anything about Hoyoverse, it's the fact that they love money. And they love microtransactions, and they will do anything they can to make you spend. So if you have a weak will and you think you can't resist spending on these games because they will try and make you spend, I would recommend staying clear from this game, because you should only spend the money you have, of course. Never ever spend money that you don't think you can part with. So let's just say in this hypothetical faraway dreamland you do have money, and a job, and a social life, and friends, and, you know, just anything meaningful. And for some reason you want to spend it on this game. Well, good thing for you, you can. They really want you to. But you don't really have to, because the beginning cast of characters is really good. So good, in fact, I've never actually felt the need to pull any characters. I have pulled on the character banner because, of course, that's what you do in this game. I just got lucky enough to pull the character, but I never really needed any of the characters, as all the free ones they give you are almost 5-star level. There'll be a time in the game where you'll reach in between Trailblaze level 40 and 50, and in that you'll realize that all your characters instantly require so many resources, so many books, so many light cone upgrades, all this stuff, and you may feel a little bit pressured because you need to have all of this energy and you don't have it. Well, that's where one thing steps in. The battle pass, or the supply pass I believe it's called. And I may or may not have purchased that, but I believe it's probably the most worth it thing. So if you're going to spend on that. Yeah, but that pretty much wraps up the video. This is me just testing, seeing what's going on. I hope you enjoyed the video. I tried my best. And yeah, subscribe. Hopefully you enjoyed. And see you in the next video. Peace. And also the anime girls are hot.